sunny, warm evening. Hopefully it'll not get too warm in here. If anybody gets too warm, that's fine. You can just go out if you need some fresh air at any point. You don't need permission to go, so just feel free to go. So I'd like to welcome everybody to this evening hearing. Can I first of all check, can everybody hear me? Right. We're relying on this system. Is that any better? Right. I'll get it closer. Hopefully we won't get feedback, but can you hear me now? Good. If at any time you can't hear what's being said, then just raise a hand and we'll try and see if we can sort something out. Okay. As some of you will already know, my name is Gordon Reid. I'm one of the 3 reporters appointed by Scottish ministers to consider the 3 wind farm applications at Craiginmoddie, Carrick and Knockcronal, and to report back to ministers. Mr Bray is also present this evening and will take part in proceedings. Mrs Leven is watching the webcast of this session but will not participate today. I will be chairing this evening's session based on the agenda that was issued on the 30th of May. I trust everybody has a copy of that agenda. Before I proceed, just some housekeeping. There is no fire drill planned for this evening, so if the alarm goes off, it is for real, and please leave the room by the emergency exits, which you can see to either side of me there, and assemble outside. The toilets are located in the cafe area as you came in to the hall, and can I please ask everybody to switch off all mobile phones or keep them on silent during the proceedings. I've just checked mine and it's off, so that hopefully won't disturb us. In order to enable everyone to hear the proceedings, I would ask those participating to use the microphones provided, and when a party wishes to speak, please push the central button on the base unit, and then once you've finished speaking, if you can then press it again to switch your microphone off, that would be very helpful. Again, please try and speak slowly and clearly so everybody can hear, and don't pick up the microphones by the neck, or that will damage them. So if you have to move it to the person that's sitting next to you, just move it by the base unit, please. Just to make everybody aware, this session is being broadcast live, and as with the previous sessions, in taking part this evening, now that does include everybody who may be sitting in the back rows who might not be participating but are present. You're consenting to being filmed and to the use and storage of those images and sound recordings and any information contained in them for webcasting and training purposes, and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. So just to make you aware of that. So that's the housekeeping bits done. So just to give you an outline of the scope of this evening's hearing, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for attending this in-person hearing this evening. So thank you for coming along. Although this evening's session is open to the public to listen to, this is not a public meeting, but a formal session of the inquiry and will operate as such. Therefore, participation is restricted to those who have notified us that they wish to take part and have summarised their evidence in writing in advance. At the pre-examination meeting on the 10th of January, it was decided that a community-focused evening hearing session would be held. This was for parties who had formally opted into the inquiry process and to provide these parties with an opportunity to ask questions or raise concerns in relation to the 3 applications. It was also agreed that the scope of the hearing session would be for the consideration of the potential landscape and visual impacts, and including residential visual amenity, from the 3 applications, both individually and cumulatively. So on that basis, no other matters, including noise or shadow flicker or transport, will be considered this evening. However, these matters have either already been considered through written submissions, or have been considered at separate hearing sessions, or will be considered in some of the upcoming hearing sessions. So these matters will be addressed as part of the inquiry process. This hearing session will take the form of a structured discussion between the parties involved, which Mr Bray and myself shall lead. No formal examination or cross-examination will be permitted. So it's not like a formal inquiry session. So everything will come to us as the reporters, and we'll decide what questions, if any, to ask. So as we progress through the agenda, parties will be given the opportunity to raise their concerns to us as reporters and ask any relevant questions. We may then ask the applicants to comment on some of those matters. The discussion will be conducted in an orderly manner. We would also seek contributions from other parties on particular matters, so we may do that as well. What's important to remember is that all previously submitted written material will be taken as read, so you do not have to read out your hearing statement this evening. We've got those and we've already been through them and read them, and therefore should not be read out. If you have comments or questions as the discussion progresses, please make sure that these go through myself, and please let any other party finish their point they're trying to make. Even if you strongly disagree with what's being said, please do not interrupt the person who's speaking. There will be an opportunity to speak after that. For those that are formally participating, if you wish to talk, just raise your hand, and remember to use the microphone when asking the question so people can actually sort of hear, and to switch it off once the question has been asked. Some of us will have the case documents to hand and will refer to the CD number, and that's a core document number. It's just a referencing system for all the documents that have been submitted so far in the inquiry, so that we can find the relevant part that some person or individual may be referring to. So we're all on the same page looking at the same information. We can take our time to get to the documents, so we'll not rush. If you need to find it, then just let me know. Also, don't feel obliged to comment if you're only repeating what's already been said or included in the written material before us. What's important to remember is that all that you tell us today is evidence that may need to be included in our reports, and you may see us take notes. I may have to ask you to pause from time to time if you're going ahead of how fast I'm actually able to write things down, or for Mr. Bray. I should make it clear at this stage that in reaching our decision on the proposals, we will take account of all the written representations already received and the evidence that is presented this evening. Just for a wider information, because there are people here who haven't been involved in parts of the process before, just to make you aware that the three reporters have visited the wider area surrounding all three applications on an unaccompanied basis, initially in January and then in April of this year. The visits included most of the agreed visualisation viewpoints identified in both the EIA reports and the additional information on cumulative effects. We have also visited high-level viewpoints, including Craiginmoddie Hill, Pinbreck Hill, Merrick, Shallock and Minich and Cornish Hill. We will also be carrying out accompanied site visits to individual properties as previously agreed at the pre-examination meetings on Monday the 12th of June, so that's this Monday coming, in relation to the residential visual amenity matters. So those site visits will take place on Monday. At the close of the inquiry, we will decide whether we need to carry out any other further site visits before completing our reports. Before we continue, is everyone reasonably clear on the procedure to be followed this evening? I will try and keep everybody on track, and hopefully it will make sense as we progress. We have said we'd finish at 8:30, and we hope that allows everyone to have their opportunity to put their concerns across and ask any questions. So just first of all, can I just ask everyone to briefly introduce themselves, and we'll just go around the table. So we'll just start to my right with Safe Straighten for Scotland, and this will test whether we can get the microphones working as well at the same time.
My name is Melvin Grosvenor, and I'm representing Safe Straighten for Scotland.
Thank you.
My name is Susan Crossthwaite, and I'm also representing Safe Straighten for Scotland.
I'm Jeanette Heggs, and I'm here on a personal basis.
My name is John Ross, and I'm here on behalf of Safe Straighten for Scotland. My name's Christopher Shaw. I'm here in a personal capacity.
My name is Ross Hunter. I live at Linston Farm, and I'm here in a personal capacity.
My name's Ellen Traynor. I'm here in a personal capacity.
Helena Manhinnick, Daily Community Council Secretary.
I'm Steve O'Brien. I'm representing Cross Hill, Straighton and Kirkmichael Community Council.
Thank you, sir. My name is Vincent Fraser, King's Counsel. I'm instructed on behalf of Knockcronal Wind Farm, and I have Mr. James Welsh, my landscape witness, who's sitting to my left.
Ewan MacLeod from Shepherd and Wedderburn Solicitor. I'm representing Scottish Power Renewables in relation to the Carrick wind farm. And to my right is Mrs. Mary Fraser, who Fisher, beg your pardon, who I gather you've met already.
So David Hardy, partner at CMS. To my left is Andrew Cook from Pegasus, and we represent the Craiginmoddie wind farm.
Okay, thank you for that round of introductions. I think the microphones are all working. And I think, can everybody at the back hear individuals? Was it a bit too quiet? So you can hear me? Right. I will try and encourage people. It's difficult sometimes to speak up loudly when you're trying to do a presentation as well, but we'll try and make sure. If there's a problem, I said, raise your hand. Just before we progress, there were emails that went round from Save Straighten for Scotland indicating that they would provide some maps this evening. These are the maps that have been issued on the tables respectively, and also the presentation which I think is up behind me in PowerPoint. All of these use existing maps and documents that are already on the core document list, I have been advised, just so that people are aware of what those are. Okay, are there any questions before we move on? Okay, we'll move on to the main part of the agenda now, and this is really the opportunity for individuals to outline to us any concerns they want us to be aware of. That can be as brief as you want. As I say, we've already got your written material, so we've done that. I'll swap to Mr. Bray's microphone. Having lectured everybody in the use of microphones, I'm the first one to fail this evening, so apologise for that. So that's the opportunity for you to look at us. We've structured it in a rough order of just looking of the people who have raised concerns from the Straighton area, the Daly area, any other area that it wants to be mentioned, and then looking at any recreational routes, cumulative landscape and visual matters, and this is the point in the agenda where Save Straighton will be making their main sort of presentation on cumulative but other landscape matters, and also then moving on to residential visual amenity matters in the evening. Without further delay, the first person I've got, and I'm sorry that there's always somebody who has to go first, but Mr. Ross, as I'm looking at you, would you like to just indicate to us what you want to tell us this evening in terms of what your main concerns are and any questions?
Thank you very much. As I set out in my hearing statement, we moved to Little Carrick just under 4 years ago on the basis that it's a beautiful, unspoilt landscape. As you drive down the valley from Straighton south down the valley, every time we come home we think, this is like Shangri-La, it's such a beautiful location. And the imposition of industrial wind farms within that landscape will completely ruin our appreciation for the landscape and the area. The proposed turbines will be located over 2 kilometres, 2.7 kilometres from our property. the recent Met mast that was installed, which is 120 metres, will be dwarfed by the 200-metre turbines on our landscape. As part of your site visit, you may have seen the Met mast. I'm not sure whether you have noticed that in your site visit.
I don't think the Met mast was up at the time that we carried out a site visit, but it may be a matter that we may well revisit.
Yeah, because it was installed in April, around about the 26th of April, and at 140 metres, with the proposed turbines being up to 200 metres and 26 of them, you can get a real feel for what impact structures of that height will have on the landscape. Also, our property is slightly elevated on the west side of the valley, between next to Craig Fad, and we have hills to the back of us, and we have Craig Hill on the east side of the valley, which creates kind of a tunnelling effect, which I know this session isn't covering noise, but the tunnelling effect will kind of amplify, and the noise will kind of bounce off the sides of the valley to be concentrated on our property. Given all these points, no one from the three applicants has been to see us to talk about the scheme or the impact of the schemes on our property and our way of life. And our request for a site visit has not been included following the pre-application meeting of January. And I'd like to take this opportunity to invite you to consider that again, to come and visit our property, because I think that we're going to be one of the most impacted in terms of landscape and visual impact.
Okay, thank you. I'll just check with Mr. Bray whether that is one of the properties we're visiting. Is it Little Carrick?
No, I remember the request, but for the reasons we set out then, which you might have seen, we've narrowed our site visit list down to 13 properties. But I think Mr. Reid said at the start that if, after hearing the session tonight and the landscape and visual inquiry sessions, which are still ongoing, we may consider that more are required. Particularly after these 13, if we feel there are more that we should go to, we'll do that. So that if we did feel it was important to visit your property, we'd be in touch at a later date, if you like.
Okay, that's great. It's on the way to Knockcronal, so you're passing anyway, so drop in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Mr. Ross. Just in terms of the Met mast, I don't think we saw it when it went up. I'm not sure which of the application that relates to. I'm assuming it's either Knockcronal or Carrick. And I don't know whether there's any comment any of the applicants wishes to make. If not,
well, so I can confirm it's Knockcronal.
It's Knockcronal. Thank you.
But
yes.
I don't think there's anything else we would wish to say.
No, that's fine. Just so we can confirm which one it relates to. That's helpful for ourselves. Thank you.
I think also, since it's something that seems to have happened just after we visited the area, although we'll be back, we'll be sure to have a visit of that, I think, given the timing.
Okay. Thank you. And now we'll move on to Mrs. Higgs. If you would like to say anything as an individual, I know you're part of the Save Straighten group, but if you'd like to say something as an individual, that would be fine.
Yes, I'm going to focus on the Pastoral Valley aspect here. We feel that we have lived in our home since 1986, since the 7th of February 1986, and we feel very privileged to live where we do. We live in the most beautiful valley, and the very word pastoral, if you know that pastoral derives from the Old French pastor, which was a shepherd, and, you know, the valley is full of sheep. It's full of livestock. And that is the rural aspect of it. Pastoral valleys are defined as having a sense of timelessness, and I think anyone who comes to our valley will appreciate that. They will appreciate the fact that the houses, the homes of people are, in the main, probably over 200 years old, but some of them go back to the 1600s. I know of two at least that go back to the 1600s. And that's where you get that sense of history, that sense of timelessness in the valley. This is something that is part and parcel of our rural existence. One of the things that has been lacking in all of this, people talk about visual effects, they talk about landscape and visual, they talk about residences, but where do the people come in? That would be my question tonight. Where do you view the people in all of this? We are living, breathing, sentient people, and we have chosen where we wanted to live because of the beauty of the landscape, because of our surroundings. And as I say, we feel personally that we are very privileged in where we live. I don't know if I can go on.
Is that the particular point you want us to take into consideration as in evidence?
Yes, and the very imposition of industrial moving structures, you know, they have no place in this rural landscape, not in this particular valley. I would say to both the Carrick and the Knockcronal applicants that you are looking in the wrong area for a wind farm. It's just not the right area. It's not the right place. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. House. Okay, these were the only two that I think were particularly specific to the Straighton area from the submissions that I received. It doesn't mean other people can't mention it, but if we can move on to before we move on to the Daly area, which we'll do next, I don't know whether there's anything from what was said that any of the applicants wish to make any response to. No, okay, thank you. So moving on to Daly, Mr. Hunter, you're at the top of my list for landscape and visuals in the Daly area, so I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Firstly, I just wanted to tell a little story about...
I think you might need to go closer to the microphone. Can the people at the back hear Mr. Hunter okay?
How does that sound? I feel a wee bit like Tina Turner here. We moved to our house back in, we bought it in 1999, moved in soon after that. And a few years later, the processes of Hadyard Hill application and the wind farm at Hadyard started. And we didn't object to it at the time, 50-something turbines, 110 metres high. I think we had a mental picture of what that might be. And it seemed like a good thing. It didn't seem like it would particularly affect us. But of course, as it started to emerge and the scale of these turbines started to be, the size of these turbines started to become evident, we soon changed our mind. The noise was phenomenal, and the motion and the size, as I say, it actually creates quite an intimidating and quite a scary environment, especially on a windy day. And we can't see them from our house. We can't hear them, even though the nearest turbine is about a mile away. It felt like, especially some of the locations of turbines around Hadyard felt quite aggressive. However, now it seems that was perhaps one of the more sensitive wind farm installations, only 110 metres high, largely within a valley, only some of them up on higher areas, but none located on hilltops or ridgelines. In a way, compared to what is proposed at Craiginmoddie, Hadyard Hill Wind Farm, I think, once the largest in the country and maybe one of the largest in Europe, it's a bit of a diddy wind farm. You know, they're relatively small because what's proposed for Craiginmoddie is nearly double the height in these turbines. I don't think people in general understand the size and the scale of these proposed 200-metre high turbines. The tallest building in Scotland is 127 metres high. The tallest building in Girvan is, let me check, the Stumpy Tower, 29 metres. It's a local landmark. And there are some huge trees in the estates in the Girvan Valley that might be 30 metres high. So 200 metres, the size of a 50-storey building, is not just something which can disappear in a wireframe model into the background of an artist's impression. It's something that really has to be thought about extremely seriously. So scale, I think, is the first issue that I want people really to seriously think about. Do we really know what 200 metres looks like? The second important point is that the location of these turbines on Craiginmoddie is near the top of an already quite substantial hill. So 382 metres is the height of Craiginmoddie Hill. Craiginmoddie Hill will become a kind of plinth for these turbines. So without getting into the exact detail, round about 350 metres is the approximate average base height for the turbines that are going on Craiginmoddie. So if you add 200 metres to that, you have something which is sitting 550 metres in there. There is absolutely no connectivity to add, to the, as I've said, and slightly tongue-in-cheek, sensitive hill adjacent. The very top of the turbine blades on Hadyard Hill is just below the height of Craiginmoddie Hill. The bases for the turbines which are proposed for Craiginmoddie are just below the summit. So even though it really doesn't look like it when you look at the wireframe visualizations, the reality is that the bases of the turbines in Craiginmoddie will pretty much align with the tops of the turbines at Hadyard. I know somebody's suggested that there's an advantage in there being some kind of sense of continuity between Hadyard Hill and the sort of chain of wind farms. I'm not exactly sure why that would be a good thing, but I'd like to make the point that there will not be a sense of continuity. That the wind farm at Craiginmoddie is going to stick up like a sore thumb beyond the skyline of everything. It will have a huge impact on the village of Daly, and it will have a huge impact on the place as a whole. I'm really not interested in getting into individual viewpoints, what you can and can't see. I won't see it out of my kitchen window. That doesn't matter. My territory is the whole valley. It's the whole place, the place that I enjoy as part of my everyday life. When I go outside, when I go for a walk, when I go somewhere in the car, I don't want that experience and that experience of everyone else who lives in the Girvan Valley to be overshadowed by overwhelming, enormous structures. So, those are probably the main points I want to make, but I also would like to make, and it's partially not about tonight, except the visual impact of access is something which also has to be thought about. And I'm not 100% clear if the access road from Daly along up to Craig Farm and along the back of Lindsayson Wood is still part of the proposal, except if it is, it will essentially create a great scar in the landscape from those people living in the south edge of Daly, and a scar across the hill. So I'm really keen for that not to happen. To go back to Hadyard, the impact of Hagyard from a construction point of view on us was actually very minimal. The U25 was not disrupted. We didn't have collapsed verges to a huge extent. We didn't have a lot of mess along that road during Hagyard's construction because it was largely led in from the other side. I am completely perplexed as to why it would seem to be a good idea to create a completely new construction route up the U25 for Craiginmoddie. Completely inappropriate, and it will destroy that road. Absolutely no doubt about it, visually. So not just from an alternative disruption point of view. Probably all I need to say about that just now, but I'm happy to pick up on any points later on.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Hunter. Just maybe there's a couple of things in there first, and I think it probably is more aimed at the Craiginmoddie applicant. A couple of things perhaps. The sort of visual impact of the access, whether you have any comment to make on that.
I think choice of the access track we'll do within the in the hearing session on transport. I don't know whether Mr. Cook has got any points on the visual aspects, but
two observations to make. Sorry if people can hear me. Probably two observations. First of all, the first part of the track makes use of much of the existing track that is up to the farmhouse, the Carrick, as it comes up the hillside southward. And much of the U25 unclassified road is also intended to be used. So there is every intention to utilise existing tracks where possible. And the link, essentially the new stretch linking those two existing routes, traverses the slopes and sits behind an area of rough ground. And you'll see on site, sir, that the traversing route, which traverses the contours, sits slightly on the south side of the field enclosure. So creation of the track actually won't be that visible from the valley to the north because of those two factors. First of all, it's traversing the slope rather than going up or down the slope. And secondly, it sits behind an enclosure feature. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. I think Mr. Bray has a question.
It was more a point of information, really. I think Mr. Hard mentioned there's a hearing on Thursday morning, which he highlighted the choice of route, what we discussed, and we will be certainly asking questions about that. But that starts at 10 o'clock. You can actually view it online on our webcast site. So if you've got an interest in that, then I just thought I'd give you that information.
Thank you, Mr.
Can I just thank you for that. I can't attend on Thursday. I would like to just simply point out that the proposed track is considerably wider than the track that leads up to Craig, and whilst it does traverse the slope, you're quite right, there are a number of gullies that come through there, so it's not a clean traverse, and the impact of that track, like any substantial forestry road, will be significantly greater than the traditional farm track that leads up to Craig Farm. So if you've been to that space, you'll see that it's not just a barren piece of hillside. There will be significant disruption up there.
The other matter was actually a question for yourself, Ms. Hunter. You focused on Craiginmoddie, and I think your submission is as well. Just to be clear, from your point of view, do you have any issues you'd like to raise with regard to the Knockcronal or the Carrick wind farm? Your main focus is on what, I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Hunter. Moving on now to Ms. Traynor. You need to use the microphone so that everybody at the back can hear.
Sorry about that. Obviously, I have a number of concerns, so much so that I constructed this model. Now, I know that it's not exactly to scale, but if you consider, I watched the visual inquiry sessions where Mrs. Fisher, whatever it is, sorry, and Carol Anderson spoke. They both spoke about the effectiveness and the limitations of photomontages and wire lines in that they can flatten a landscape, they don't give a true representation, and they use the word representation a lot. Now, this model is also a representation. That's a representation of the impact on the whole of the Girvan Valley. The blue flags on this model are some of the existing Haggard Hill turbines. They're located within a basin. They're well hidden from the valley to a large extent. As Mr. Hunter said, they're sensitively placed. Whereas these turbines represent the Craiginmoddie turbines. And as you can see, the difference in scale is significant. The impact on the whole of the valley, for the Girvan Valley, will be significant for that. That will be the dominant feature for the whole of the valley. You can take a picture of our house, which is there, there, from Girvan. So these turbines will be very visible from Girvan, from Ailsa Craig. We can sit at our house and take pictures of the Mull of Kintyre and see the turbines in the Mull of Kintyre. You will be able to see these turbines very clearly from the Mull of Kintyre. They will be a dominant feature in the landscape. They will dominate the whole valley. In terms of the effectiveness of this model, it has been used to show people the impact for the local area. It's a representation, but it is pretty accurate. The turbines are to scale. If anything, the height of the turbines is slightly smaller than they actually are, if you were doing it specifically to scale, only because I didn't have pins at the right height. In terms of the impact on our individual property, as Jeanette says, we choose to live where we live. We moved there in 1988, I think. It's a beautiful area. We live very close to the existing Haggard Hill turbines. They're 2 kilometres away from the house, the closest array, which is that one. These ones are being brought to 1.6 kilometres, 1.65, something like that, closer to the house. These turbines are 110 metres high. These ones are 200 metres high. The top of Craiginmoddie is 382 metres. So our house, which is there, if I turn it, you'll be able to see it a bit better, will be completely dominated by these things. It would be like having 5 Eiffel Towers within 2 kilometres of the house, towering above the house. And how that cannot be identified as overbearing, I fail to understand. And that's without mentioning all the other concerns that we have regarding noise, traffic, etc. This is only focusing on the visual. They will be overbearing. And I know you've got a visit planned for next week, I think, the 12th. The loss of amenity for our property will be very significant. We spend all our time outside, as I'm sure Jeanette does, as I'm sure Mr. Hunter does. Because you live in the country, that's what you do. You spend your time outside, you spend out time in your garden. Ross spends time with his birds, Janice spends time with her horses, Jeanette spends time with her dogs. I spend time in the garden. Our garden surrounds the house, it's a dog leg, and all of it is facing the Haggard Hill, the Craiginmoddie proposal. All of it. I think I've said enough. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much for that. There has been previous correspondence about the model, and I think we've kind of discussed in terms of its representation and any sort of issues, concerns. They have been discussed previously. Do any of the applicants wish to make any comment on any of the matters raised? Nope, I'm getting no's from there. Okay, let's move on to Daly.
I was just going to say that I'd mentioned earlier on that we're going to visit 13 properties. Just to give you a flavour, it's not visiting inside the properties only. It will involve around the properties, the garden, the principal living areas, and we'll do the same sort of visit to each of the properties. So we will look at all the garden space that's pointed out to us and the living space. So that was just to clarify what we'll be doing on our site visits, which are accompanied by the applicants and owners and others next Monday.
Okay, thank you for that. Daily Community Council.
Yeah, Helena here. Basically, Ross and Ellen have covered most of the points, really. Our concerns are to do with the scale and size, because they will be enormous. And I think the model actually shows it very well. The other concern is for the people opposite Craiginmoddie, which will be Wollaston and the surrounding along that ridge. They will have it right in their face, just like Ellen. You know, they will be dominant in the landscape. Now, an easy way to show the dominance would be the Trelorg wind farm, which is, I think it's 100 to 110 on a point. Now, if you imagine those, double the height, basically, and they are actually on, I think, contours of under 200 metres. So the Craiginmoddie ones, like you say, are 382. So it's way above anything. So any of you guys can go down to the point down at Girvan, and you can see what the height's going to be like. Sorry, can you hear me? The other thing is regarding Energy Contour and Craiginmoddie developers. Nobody has consulted with the village regarding the proposed access road going up to Craig. I think that is really shoddy. I think you've taken full advantage of the COVID situation where you didn't come and visit at all. The people at Eldington and Hadger Terrace, Hazelwood Avenue and Loaning will have this scar right across their landscape. And also when it's being constructed, if it is constructed, hopefully not, they will, you know, have dust, noise for I don't know how long. The other thing is that there is another wind farm being built right now, Carrick Hill, and with this proposed one as well, it's then surrounding us basically on both sides of the valley. And as Ross said about the entry points, when you come off from Cross Hill, the hill up there, you can actually see the Trelorg wind farm. Okay, imagine double the height. That's all I'm saying on that. And then the model, I think this is an absolute must that wind farms do it, because it actually shows where the features are, where the actual turbines will be, and you know, the scale and size of things. I think that's basically it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Just turning to Craiginmoddie, I don't know if you want to make any comments on any of that. And just to clarify, in terms of consultation, do you know whether any consultation was carried out as indicated by Daily Community Council?
They were included as part of the consultation exercise, but what I'm told is during COVID they were online, so it's correct, not in person, but they formed part of the consultation effort that took place.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bray?
I think that's made with regard to the other wind farms as well.
Sorry.
Oh, am I not working at all? There we go. That better? Okay. Those comments were made with regard to most of the applications in terms of the impact. So it wasn't just particularly Craiginmoddie from a recollection in terms of the representations. That was a general concern. The question I had, I think, possibly for the three of the last speakers, is that you've not touched on whether or not the site is capable of taking wind farms from a landscape perspective. Your key concern is scale. That's the point that I've I've picked up. You haven't raised or criticised what the applicants have maybe done in terms of the character of the landscape. Your key concern is the scale in respect of other developments on the landscape. Mr. Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to talk to that, but I think it's hard to imagine that anything in the character of a wind turbine could potentially enhance a rural landscape. I mean, it's sort of ridiculous. Although I noticed that within the Craiginmoddie application, there was a comment from the landscape consultant that suggested that the presence of the turbines overlooking the valley on the Stincher side, the drama of the crags would be enhanced by the drama of these enormous turbines. I've never heard anything so ridiculous in my life. I'm not exactly sure what he was on. So the character of these rural landscape, of these pastoral valleys, it's inconceivable that they would be enhanced by the presence of turbines. So the question is really, how small should they be in order to be acceptable? And I think in terms of Craiginmoddie, it's actually very difficult to imagine any turbine height that would be acceptable, because it's certainly not going to make a difference to half them. You know, it's not going to make the problem go away by saying, okay, let's just do wee ones like we've got on Hadyard, because as I've already said, the height, the height up to 550 metres at tip height above sea level compared to 350 metres at tip height for the highest of the Hadyard turbines. You know, I think people have got used to the idea of Hadyard. It is not without its problems. I'm not suggesting it's a great example, but I think it's what we know. We're all experienced. We're probably around this side of the room more experienced than anyone at that side of the room in terms of living with wind farms, because we're all of us living within what are now called wind farm communities at one level or another. So that landscape character, I think there's an enormous amount of obfuscation which is part of this landscape assessment process. Views from specific places, where you can see it, where you can't see it. I'm really concerned about it, because I think that it doesn't actually get to the heart. It turns the whole exercise into a kind of spreadsheet. It doesn't actually get to the heart of what the real problem is. And others have talked about that, the impact on real people, on real homes, on real landscapes, and the character of those landscapes. It's not about a set of numbers and a set of spreadsheets and this kind of process which seems to have been evolved through the I can only imagine it's been driven by the wind farm developers, because I think it only plays into their advantage. Thousands of pages of information which are almost impossible to deal with individually. So I'm not sure. I probably got off the point a little bit there, except I think what I'm trying to say is in terms of Craiginmoddie, halving the size, a thirding the size, it's not really going to make the problem go away. Moving a few of them around, it's deck chairs on the Titanic, you know.
Testing.
I think this is working now. Can everybody hear me again? Ms. Crosswaite.
I wondered if I could comment on the changes in landscape, having visited many wind farms and living in an area of wind farms.
Can I just pause there just for a second, because I think that's what I was just going to come on to. Okay. The next two items, not one person in particular kind of raised these, but these were kind of just looking at other areas that of concern. But I think some people kind of indicated the wider, I think Mr Hunter indicated the wider area, or on particular recreational routes, which I think was mentioned. So if we can just pick up these, but then we'll come back to that wider one with yourself first, just to make sure I've covered off everything to give everybody a fair chance. Mr Shaw.
Just two very brief points on those matters that we've already covered. As far as I know, Scottish National Heritage have actually designated only 3 intimate pastoral valleys in the whole of Ayrshire. The whole of Ayrshire, not just South Ayrshire, the whole of Ayrshire. These developments impact on 2 of them. And I think that is significant. But the other point I would like to make is that the swept volume of these turbines is roughly the same size as the flight deck of the Queen Elizabeth II aircraft carrier. It's absolutely bloody enormous. The idea that something of that size whirling around at 100 miles an hour on the skyline isn't going to be intrusive is, frankly, fantasy. Something of that size is going to be enormously intrusive if you're anywhere within visual impact of it. That was all. Thanks.
No, thank you for that.
Just on that, Mr Shaw, I think you mentioned Scottish National Heritage, which is now Nature Scot, but were you indicating that that was a designation that they had designated rather than the local authority? I don't know if the applicants want to respond to that, because I think I heard you saying it was an SNH Nature Scot designation rather than a local authority.
That's what I understood, but I'm happy to be corrected.
If I could ask the applicants on that, their understanding, just so we're clear.
Knockcronal.
Sir, thank you. The first point I would make is that this is landscape character is not a designation as such. I know how the term was being used, and I accept that is fair in the circumstances, but we're not talking about designations here in landscape character terms. The local landscape area was identified by South Ayrshire Council through its local landscape designations review. It was not something that Nature Scot identified as such. In terms of landscape character, both Nature Scot and South Ayrshire Council have their own landscape character assessments, which identify the area as a pastoral valley.
Oh, Mr Shaw, were you referring to landscape character areas that Nature Scot have identified rather than a designation?
Not at all, not at all, sir. My understanding was that somewhere within the literature you can get on the Nature Scot website, it refers to intimate pastoral valleys, of which there are 3 in Ayrshire. One is up somewhere past Troon, the other 2 are in the area we're talking about.
Well, we'll certainly make sure that we're aware what's in those documents, particularly the landscape character assessment, and we'll double check that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Mrs Heggs?
Can I just come in on that? Because it is, Nature Scot defines a pastoral valley and the importance of the character of these valleys. I've got SNH National Landscape Character Assessment, Landscape Character Type 72, Pastoral Valleys, Ayrshire. And then I've got the perception. These are well-settled, intricately patterned landscapes which have a rural, picturesque quality, a rich heritage and a strong sense of timelessness. It goes on for a page at least, so I'm not going to read it all. I'll leave it at that. but it is a landscape character assessment, landscape character, and it is type 72.
Well, that's helped us. That's clarified. It's from the landscape character. So that's. Thank you for that, Ms. Higgs.
Thank you.
Okay. I think that's picked up on some of the kind of wider areas. Was there anybody, I think you did mention something about recreational routes in your submission. I don't know if you want to add anything to that this evening.
Again, over the years, we have walked the area extensively. Previously, I suppose we walked on the higher hills, but now we tend to stay on the lower slopes, and a lot of our walking is done in the Galloway Forest. And I know that, I know that the roads that we walk in the forest are going to be hugely impacted by the appearance of turbines there. And again, it's the movement of them. When I'm walking in the forest anyway, I'm walking there as a means of what? It's not just recreation, it's a way of thinking my own thoughts. I can meditate as I walk, and very rarely do I ever meet anyone while I'm out. So that these walks are priceless to me in the fact that you know, I can, as I say, I can walk with my own thoughts, but it's the peace, it's the quiet, the tranquility of them. All that I'm hearing as I'm walking is maybe the crunch of my feet on the road, the bird song, and at this time of the year, it's the cuckoo that absolutely thrills my soul when I'm walking, and I can hear that call. The rustle of the trees in the wind, the occasional plane going over. But none of this is intrusive sound at all. These are the sounds that one would expect in the forest, in the countryside. And I know that on two of the walks that I do just now, I can see the Knockcronal net mast from these walks, and I keep thinking to myself, I'm seeing that, and it is absolutely still in the landscape. It is, as we were corrected, 120 metres high, not as we had thought 140 metres high. So the turbines at 200 metres high are going to be even more intrusive. And the very fact that they are going to be turning is going to draw the eye. That's not what people come to the countryside for. It's for the peace, it's for the tranquility, it's for that sense of being on one's own, if you like. The only other thing that I would say would be the National Cycle Route 7, number 7. It is already impacted by some turbines, but I think they are at a distance. I would think that that is going to be very much impacted by the turbines, especially the ones of Craiginmoddie. I think I'm right in saying that. I think.
Okay. No,
I think I'm finished.
Okay, that's fine. Can I just check, when you're talking about the walks rather than the cycle route, are there any particular sort of official routes or walks that you're referring to as part of that, or is it just the walks in the area in general?
I have seen these referred to as South Ayrshire 46, 47.
Sort of core paths walks, perhaps.
Sorry? Core paths. I'm not entirely sure. I know that one of the walks that I do from Stincher Bridge down to Stincher Falls, that's part of a core path.
No, that's fine. I think that gives us the general area that you're referring to, so I think we've seen that.
Maybe it's me that I didn't quite catch the clarification on the height of the Met Mast, but if you do rather than asking formally, can the applicant confirm 120 or 140, or do we need to write out formally?
It is 120, sir.
Thanks for that clarification.
Mr. Hunter, I think you want to ask a...
Thank you. I just wanted to add to what Ms Heggs has said there about there are a number of formal trails round about. In Daly, there are, of course, the Daly trails, which attract a significant number of people to the village and to the area round about. And South Ayrshire Council has designated the area round about as the Ayrshire Alps and promotes it as such on their website. It's part of a tourism strategy, and it's particularly aimed at cyclists. So the U25, as I believe it's known, the road that comes up past us is a very popular route for cycling events, cycling competitions, and those kind of serious cyclists who are attracted to the area because of that. And I think that's, so access is, again, probably a different issue, but the reason that they're coming to the area is because of the landscape characteristics, which we think will be undermined by the development.
Okay, thank you for that. Daily Community Council?
Yeah, Elaine again. Yeah, I'd like to add to that, actually, because that's very true. And they also go on the other side of the valley as well. So they will be impacted by the views as well and the landscape. They go all the way through here. That's both the cycling and the paths.
Ms Traynor, you had your hand up.
Yeah, can I just add that the Daily Trails, one of the particular Daily Trails is the Pilot Walk, and it goes up here to the top of Blair Hill, or up as far as the Pilot, I think, Helena. It has numerous people walking on it. We see them from the house. They frequently land up on their doorstep when they're lost. French folk, Belgian folk, Spanish folk, they're all staying at Brunston. So it's a big attraction. And the number of people that use that walk is considerable. And if you look at it, if they're going up to here, they're looking at Hadgard Hill, which is contained, small. They're going to be exposed to the Craiginmoddie. That walk will become redundant. In close proximity to them, the turbines are right on the ridge line. People will stop using that walk. Now, there is an issue, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. All sorts of recreational routes, access was promised for the Hadgard Hill wind farm. The gates are locked. There are no vehicles allowed in there, and people are actively discouraged from using the wind farm for recreation. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I think that... Oh, sorry, Mr Ross.
Just with regards to cycle route, National Cycle Route 7, it forms part of the construction access route for two of the sites, with a significant increase in traffic of heavy goods vehicles and abnormal loads. But I guess we'll cover that in more detail in Thursday's session on traffic and highways.
Okay, thank you for that. I think that kind of covers the points that I had on the agenda there. I think probably at this point, it's under item 6, which is cumulative landscape and visual matters, but I think this is the point where I think Safe Straighton want to cover general landscape, some cumulative matters, and then move on to visual impact on nearby houses in item 7. So if we can take general first, cumulative, and then move on to the second part. I don't think people will hear. Is Mr. Grosvenor going to be speaking?
On behalf of Save Straighton, we've put together this interactive map based on properties where we have engaged and done some noise monitoring and looked at the looked at the area and the landscape and visuals of the area. The separation distances to the nearest properties is a matter of material significance, so it's hugely important. You can see in pink, that's Craiginmoddie, and you can see the purple, which is Carrick, and the brown, which is Knockcronal. And you can see the height above sea level, the AOD, of the lowest turbine in each of the wind farms. So it's 293 metres, the lowest turbine in Craiginmoddie, and 300. I think it's it's not marked on this one. 300. I think it's 307 metres. And in Carrick, we have the lowest one as 285 metres and the highest one as 401 metres. In Knockcronal, it's 280 and to 307. Now, these are vast differences between, and this is the base height, by the way, so you need to add 200 metres onto this to the blade tip. So this is a vast difference. And when you will be viewing these rotating, they all don't go round necessarily at the same time. They are often not going round in phase, and so the visual impact will be huge for anybody living or walking in this area. And if you're somewhere like Wallistown, Barnfield is one of the properties, probably the most northerly property you can see on there. I'm afraid I can't speak here and be over there, but if you actually click on the properties, the name comes up with the distance and the height above sea level. So this is going to have a huge impact in that when the developers do their cumulative assessment and when they do their assessments, they're all based on everything being level. And therefore, you get, you wouldn't see the full cumulative impact. Now, what we've also done, and I will go over there, is we have put the distances to each of these properties. because it's of material significance. And if that's all right, I will show you the distances from each of the wind farms to the nearest property. Pardon? Yeah, you hand those out. Yeah.
So we'll just wait till these maps are handed out to all parties.
I think we're going to suggest that we move the microphone over. The reason why we're doing that is that it's actually been webcast live, so therefore any other PC and it's on the microphone, so that's
Thank you.
consistent.
So we can see the distance from each of these properties. I think you can see my mouse here. That's Talaminnock. This one is Taylor Toll House. This one is Knoxcay. This one is Little Carrick. This one is Glenhead, and you can see a big dot where Strayton is, because Strayton will be severely impacted too. And then over here we have Barnfield, which is another house that we recommended that you did a site visit to, for the simple fact that when you're in the garden at Barnfield, you're looking directly back towards Hadyard Hill and the ridge where Craiginmoddie will be, and very possibly they will see Carrick as well in the distance. And another property just to the east of Barnfield, you can see Dursalloch from as well, so it stands very high. And then, of course, there will be Kirkhill behind, which we haven't included. Then we have, this one represents Daly. It's a house in Daly. And this one is Dobbingston, which, as you can see, is only 1.7 kilometres from the nearest Craiginmoddie wind farm. And then this one down here is Glengennet. These aren't necessarily the nearest properties. You can see all the properties where the wind developers have done their noise monitoring. They're just the circles. But these were places that we were invited to do monitoring at. And then we go to Carrick, and we add in the nearest turbine to each house for Carrick. And you can see that Talaminnock and Taylor Cottage will be hugely impacted. Taylor Cottage just 1.4 kilometres. And Knoxcay is only 2.6 kilometres from the nearest Carrick property. Glenella I didn't mention before, is just this one here, and that one is that's about, it's at the details haven't come up. If I click on it, maybe it'll come up. 1.9 metres. And then we can add in Knockcronal. And we can see the impact that the cumulative impact will have. This demonstrates quite clearly the cumulative impact of the area. This area has about 359 registered postcodes, homes in the area, and this is significant because they're all within a very, very close area of these pastoral valleys of the Girvan Valley and the Stinshire Valley. Now, if we add in the distances to Hadyard Hill and the distances to Desalach, we can see that we're going to have a huge area covered. And that's just within our properties. There are other properties, as you can see, out with that we haven't included. But it is going to have a significant impact and completely change the area. As has been mentioned, Hadyard Hill, you can drive through it, and it was set out in a very aesthetic way. I have visited many wind power plants, and the character of the area is never the same after they've been put there. There is an oppression in the area. There is no longer that serenity and that peace that we all love to experience when we go to the countryside. And it's not just for our benefit, those of us who are lucky enough to live in these places. People go to the countryside for mental health issues. The trees and the open sky and the peace and the quiet is so good for everyone's mental health. And it's really important that we maintain such a lovely area as this. I'll just switch these off just now. We have also maps as well with the full cumulative impact on that we will give out at the end. But we'd like to talk about now the actual impact on the particular residences. So I'll hand over to Melvin. Do you want to sit down?
Okay. This isn't musical chairs, it's microphone chairs. Right. We felt it was important to put some context in the applications themselves from the residential visual amenity perspective, and I need to refer you to the non-technical summaries for Craiginmoddie, Carrick and also Knockcronal. If you want the references, the core document references, have you got those? We've given them to you. So that's CD for Craiginmoddie, CD 001001, and it's that's for Craiginmoddie, and again for Carrick it's 002001, and for Knockcronal it's CD 003001. So we go right back to the beginning of the application. And if I can just read out paragraph 32 from Craiginmoddie, and it says the proposed development will consist of the construction, 35-year operation, and subsequent decommission up to 14 wind turbines with an overall height of 200 metres to blade tip. Paragraph 32 of Carrick says there is no proposal to limit the lifetime of the proposed development. Therefore, the EIR considers the effect of the operational phase of the proposed development without limitation to a defined period of time. And then in Knockcronal, the operation lifespan of the proposed development would be 30 years, after which it would be appropriately decommissioned. It's expected that decommissioning would take approximately 12 months. If after the operational lifespan of the proposed development has expired, there is a potential for repowering the development, then this would be subject to a new and separate application. Now, this is quite important because all of the residential amenities studies are based on impacts, visual impacts, in many cases which are transitional. And we'll talk about that a little bit further down the line. I'd also like to refer to CD 007-4, which is South Ayrshire Council Supplementary Guidance on Wind Energy. And there we see in paragraph C, communities and quality of life, and amenity. And South Ayrshire Council's position is an assessment of the visual effects on the following interests, where relevant, will be requested: homes and towns and villages within 5 kilometres of a wind farm. And then they also say visual. This assessment should be informed by residential visual amenity surveys. All properties between 2.5 kilometres of wind turbines should be considered in this assessment. Well, what we've actually got is visual assessments for residential meters up to 2 kilometres. So none of those are, we would say, are sufficiently detailed. Then if we go to again to to Knockcronal, EIR, and it's CDs 003-6161, Volume 4, Chapter 6, Appendix 6.003, and all I'm going to do is just highlight key considerations of a residential amenity assessment. And it says distance of property from the proposed development with regards to its size, scale and location, direction of view, aspect of property affected, having regard to the main primary and peripheral and secondary views, extent to which the development landscape change will be visible, change in the scale of views, degree of contrast or integration of new features or changes in the landscape compared to the existing situation in terms of form, scale and mass, height, colour and texture, and most importantly, duration and nature of the changes, whether temporary or permanent, intermittent or continuous, reversible or irreversible. Situation we have here seems to be quite apparent. We're talking about irreversible residential amenity and visual impacts. There was once a time when wind farm applications were coming through for a period of time of 25 years, after which they would be decommissioned. So all of the concerns that have been raised thus far tonight are in the context of a permanent change in the landscape, residential, visual amenity, etc. So that's the baseline. That's where we start from. Now, what would go on to next, and we're going to focus on Knockcronal first, and look at some of the montages. We're not going to go to too many because it would take too long, and it's 5 to 8 already. But I just want to take you to the Lieutenant Colonel James Hunter Blair Monument, and it's also known as the Craiginmoddie Obelisk. It's the same place, but what we have is that on the Knockcronal visualizations, montages, they talk about the Craiginmoddie monument, and on Carrick they talk about the Hunter Blair monument, and it's the same location. So if you go to Knockcronal, if you scroll down, Susan, I don't know whether you can actually see that, but that's a montage. It's Knockcronal CD 003099, and it's figure 6.24G, viewpoint 4, without any properties on it. It's the Knockcronal viewpoint. And what we've done there, because it's such an open view, I know it's difficult to see it on the visual, we've actually marked in the properties in that view. When you look at the montage itself, and if you've got the montages with you, you can see the properties, but you don't know which properties they are. Now, this is quite an important view because it sets the scene for both Knockcronal and Carrick. We're not going to touch too much on Craiginmoddie because we're representing Save Strait, and so we're looking at that particular part of the two developments. So if we scroll down, the next one is the montage. Again, you've got the CD reference on there, which is the Knockcronal montage from, they call Craigingower. In fact, it's also the Colonel Blair Monument. It's the same, basically. So that's the viewpoint from up the top there of Craiginmoddie, of Knockcronal. Go to the next one, and it's difficult to see it, but that's the montage that Carrick have produced for the same view, and you can see that the turbines go from basically the full vista from what would be looking south to the west, the east and the west. It fills up the view. And of course, bearing in mind that you've got properties in that same area that will be impacted by both Knockcronal and also Carrick. And then what we've done, because there is no, and the next one is that's the wire line for Carrick. So you can actually see the wider expanse there, and it's considerable from this view from the Craigingower and the Colonel Hunter Blair Monument. And then if you go down, what we've actually done, now this is just a representation, because there was no montage, there was no cumulative montage that we could find from this viewpoint that included both the Carrick and the Knockcronal. And if you look at both of them, if you scroll back up, you can certainly see that both the developments would fill in that space. There you go, and that's the other one. So that is something that needs to be considered. And certainly we would encourage the reporters to visit those locations, and we would also support the request for a site visit to Little Carrick, because Little Carrick sits at the bottom of the escarpment and will have views across towards the south onto those turbines. Okay? Then if we scroll back down again, Susan, then that is figure, you can see it there, figure 001, is that 031.6 EIR volume 4, and that shows you the points towards, or the viewpoints towards that's Knockcronal, and then you've got the ZVI on there, shows the visual impacts, and it's extensive. It's certainly, can you just scroll slightly back down? You can't, it doesn't go all the way up to, but straight, it's at the head of the valley. So there will be views as you come down, and there is a montage on the minor road that you can actually see the turbines for Knockcronal across the top. We haven't put that one in there because of time, but you can go to that viewpoint or that montage when you're doing your site visit, no doubt. Then if we scroll down, Now, I just want to look very briefly at the actual sum of the properties, and we're focusing on the closest properties to Knockcronal, and of course the closest property is Knockski, and we have actually got the photo montages here in hard copy of the visual impact on Knockski, and I'll refer to it now because this is really important. If you look at that montage there, thank you. Thank you. Sorry, if you got hold of it. The key feature of that particular photo montage is that some of the turbines are hidden behind trees. Now, when you consider that the lifetime of Knockcronal is for 30 years, at any time, those trees could either be cut down, diseased, and so the views open up. And this is quite important for, I think, most of the viewpoints and the residential amenity survey throughout the montages that we've looked at and the properties we've looked at. And it's certainly in relation to Carrick, because I've been representing communities for a long time, wind farm communities raising their legitimate concerns. And this is the first time I've come across an application where we're looking at a consent, a permanent consent, with no proposal to the limit of the lifetime. And of course, the argument there that we would put forward is that negates many of the properties where the fourth stage of the residential amenity assessment has been missed out because of they're screened. So if we scroll down to, we'll leave Knockski there because we've got that montage there. If you can scroll down to Taylor Cottage. Yep. To the wire line and the, there's the wire line for Taylor Cottage. Okay. If you scroll through, we should have a visual in there as well. Hang on. Oh, it's not on there. Oh, it's in Carrick. Okay. Well, let's. So we just to recap, the properties that we've concentrated on for this evening, I'll list them for you. Knockski, Turlaw Toll Cottage, hang on, let me just give them a Turlaw Toll House, and also Talaminnock, I think it is. Yeah. Because they're the ones that are, Knockski is the nearest one looking towards the southern end of the developments, and the other ones are the ones that are looking from the most impacted views from the east looking towards the west, because if you look at the maps that you've got, we've shown you the biggest impacts are from that angle, although let me just go into, I need to go into Carrick now. Craiginmoddie. Yeah. Right. So we go down to, you're on Carrick now, are you? So can you scroll up to page 2, Susan, on Carrick? That's it. Yeah, that's the site of Carrick, and then you can see Turlough Cottage. You've got Knockski in there and Talaminnock. So we're looking at that particular size there. And if you look from the east to the west, those properties are looking straight through Carrick and also onto Craiginmoddie, and they've also got views up towards Knockcronal. So we scroll back down to there you go. There you go. That's well, we're not going to focus too much on Granella because we understand that Granella may possibly be an involved property at some point. But the point about that is that in terms of Carrick, who I think are the applicants that are shown an interest in Granella, that will be taken permanently out of residence because it's a permanent. They're seeking a permanent consent, so that's a loss of a rural property in that area. Then, if we go down to, I'm following Susan down. Give me a minute. Yeah, Turlough Cottage. Now, this is a cumulative montage, and that's the first part. So that's figure 3A. And then if we go back down, I think we've got the other part of Turlough Cottage, which is the other end of it, because it's such a wide expanse. And then we've got Knockcronal there in blue, I believe, and Carrick in red. Then we see, if you scroll down to the actual photo montage, that's part of it. And okay, there is landscape screening there, but the trees that are there that are covering quite a few on the right of your picture, that would expose more of the turbines into the view. Then if you scroll back down to the next one again, you've got more tree coverage and more landscape coverage. So again, those trees there are transient. They may be there for most of the time, but because it's a permanent application, there's no guarantee that that is the case. Then if we go down to Turlough House, and then the first one is the montage with including Knockcronal, but the majority of Carrick, that's the wire line. And also we go down to the visual, the montage. So we've got some turbines actually hidden behind the trees there, according to the photo montage. And then we go back down to the next one. That'll be the southern view, which shows again Knockcronal and also Carrick turbines. Now, the assessment for Turlough House was that it wouldn't be overbearing. And we would argue that given that Carrick is a permanent development, that changes that assessment, and that property and any property with significant screening in relation to Carrick, the residential visual immunity assessments, we would argue and we would contest, are not suitable. They're not acceptable. They haven't gone far enough because they've missed out the stage 4 of the RVIA assessment. Then if you go back down to the next one, that's Turlough House again. The visual, and then you've got turbines to the right, which would be to the north, if I got my directions correctly. And then if you scroll down again, that's the full position for the next montage. I think that's number A. And then if you scroll back down again, oh, sorry, one to Talaminnock. Yeah, well, Talaminnock is the worst property of all of them. And again, Talaminnock, it shows a lot of screening. If you go down to figure B, Susan, there you go, you've got a lot of screening there, but if you scroll back up again, that's what's actually there. So I think that concludes what we would like to say. If you've got any. Is it C then? That's the full view on Talaminnock then, isn't it? The full view on Talaminnock as well. But you can see where you've got a huge amount of screening, but of course, given that this Carrick is permanent, then it's unsafe to assume that screening is going to be there in perpetuity. It may be, it may not be. Certainly some of it will remain, certainly some of it could go. Some of it's forestry, I believe, and we know that with the other applications we've had where there have been forestry clearances. Do you want to carry on, Susan? Yeah.
Okay, does that complete your presentation?
May I just come in with
Yes.
a few of the residents' comments?
Before we move to that, just in case people forget, I think both myself and Mr. Reid have got a number of clarifications, and I think the applicants might want to come in this, but with regard to the lifetime and what's proposed, and the basis of the landscape and visual assessments in terms of permanency versus temporary, and want to just double check, you indicated there that you felt that stage 4 of the residential visual amenity assessment guidance wasn't carried out. So on these 3 points, I'd like the applicants to be able to respond. So that's in terms of what is sought in terms of consent for each applicant, how you've assessed landscape and visual character with regard to permanency versus temporary, and also that last point that I made with regard to stage 4, as was suggested, being missed out. So I'll offer that up to all the applicants to answer these 3 matters. And Carrick, have the light on first.
Thank you, sir. Yes, just a point of clarification for Mr. Grosvenor and for everybody. Although the Carrick application did originally did not propose to limit the lifetime of the development, as Mr. Grosvenor indicated, the applicant does now accept that there should be a condition which will limit the lifetime of the development. Now, the duration is still to be discussed at the conditions session. I did want to make that point of clarification.
But your proposal for the duration is?
I beg your pardon, sir?
Your proposal for the duration is?
You're asking how long?
I'm asking how long.
Yes. At the moment, the condition refers to 40 years. But that is subject to discussion at the conditions session. One further point of clarity, just for your notes, before I hand over to Mrs. Fisher. Mr. Grosvenor referred to the Council's supplementary guidance on wind energy document CD 07004. That document has now been superseded, and that's been discussed in other sessions of the inquiry.
Just to be clear, that will be discussed at our policy discussion, which I think is on the Monday the 19th of June, an all-day virtual hearing. Ms. Fisher.
Thank you. So I think the other 2 points you asked about were permanency and how that was treated in the assessment. So obviously at the time we were carrying trying to look at the person who asked the question, but yeah, sorry. So At the time we carried out, the assessment was carried out, permanency is taken into account in judging the magnitude of effects, so it was taken into account in the assessment. The same is also true, incidentally, of the felling of trees. That's also taken into account in the judgments made. And Stage 4 certainly was carried out. For clarity, Stage 4 is the deciding whether or not effects are or would be overbearing or overwhelming. So it certainly was done and formed part of the assessment work undertaken. And if I may, I have one further clarification. The distances being given in the presentation and on some of these sheets are incorrect in relation to some of the properties because these drawings and I think the measurements still include turbine 10, which has now been omitted. So the distances are provided correctly on the visualisations which were provided for the site visit on Monday.
And the other applicants, I don't know if you want to clarify for everyone here tonight the basis on which the application was made with regard to the time period?
Yes, so that's a 35-year temporary period, and we've got full decommissioning at the end of that.
And with regard to your the suggestion that Stage 4 hasn't been carried out, I assume that might have just been Knockcronal and Carrick that you were referring to, or was it all applicants?
As far as we know, we only looked at a few. Well, we looked at Knockski on for Knockcronal, and Stage 4 was carried out, but Taylor House, Tullaminnock, and also Taylor Cottage, according to the residential amenity assessment, it says it wasn't necessary.
Okay. Knockcronal, do you want to add anything with regard to one, the period sought, and two, with regard to the matter you've just heard there in terms of visual amenity assessment?
Thank you, sir. The lifespan being sought for Knockcronal is 30 years. And in terms of the residential visual amenity assessment that was carried out, a Stage 4 assessment is undertaken where a high magnitude of effect is assessed to occur. And Stage 4 assessments were carried out for Knockcronal where that situation arose. That's in accordance with the Landscape Institute's 2019 guidance. If I could just add that the extract that was put to us about assessments considering impacts to be temporary or of short duration, that is a list of the factors that the guidance presents for consideration when undertaking an assessment. But in terms of our methodology, we assume that the impacts from the wind farm will be permanent, i.e. there's no diminution of effect by assuming that this is a reversible or temporary development.
Perhaps if I can ask, sorry, Mr. Fraser, you want to comment?
Yeah, can I just make a couple of further comments on the material that was being put to you, sir? First of all, sir, on distances, you will find accurate distances again in the material that has been provided to the inquiry. So in particular, sir, the residential visual amenity assessment, which is Appendix 6.4, I think, if I remember correctly. I'll give you the core document number in a moment, sir. But you also then, sir, have the yes, it's core document CD 3.161, and so in addition to that, you have the updated residential visual amenity photo montages, which is core document CD 3.202. You'll have noted in Mr. Welsh's statement commenting upon the submissions for this session, he queried whether some of the turbines were being located in exactly the correct position. So, sir, we would urge you, first of all, to rely upon those accurate measurements when you're trying to look at things. Secondly, sir, you were taken to what was said to be a photograph from the Craiginmoddie monument from the Knockcronal EIAR. It was viewpoint 4. I think it actually looked to us as if it had been cropped and adjusted. It certainly isn't the same. If you go to the correct figure in the EIAR, it doesn't present that way. So again, I do ask you to go, when looking at these matters, to look at that to see what the correct position is. And then finally, sir, the point was made that there isn't a photo montage showing both Carrick and Knockcronal from that viewpoint. I think that is correct, that the two aren't shown together in the photo montage, but there is, of course, an accurate wireframe of that, and you'll see that taking into account the removal of turbine 10 in CD 3.200, and it's figure A124A.
I think it would be helpful if I'll come back in a second. If you can just bear with me, I think it would be helpful if Safe Sitting could submit what they've presented this evening to us, and then we can ask parties for any comments they have on that, just so that we've got clarity and we've got a chance to look at it as well. So we'll follow that up if that addresses those concerns. Before I hand over, Mr. Breed's got one more thing, but we'll get there, I promise.
Sorry, I do like asking questions. Tree cover. Can you all just clarify how you addressed tree cover with regard to your residential visual assessment? Because I think that was actor there. So, did you consider blank canvas or with the cover? I think that's to all applicants. I'm not sure who wants to go first. Should be a straightforward question, I think, for the experts here.
I'm very happy to answer that. In terms of our RVAA, we assess it against the baseline conditions, but if it appears to us that there is reliance on coniferous plantation, we would note that as a factor in the assessment sheets. Also, sir, for the purposes of Tail or Toll Cottage, at this inquiry, we have presented a photo montage with the forestry partially removed, i.e. we've taken out the coniferous material in the view, but we have retained the parts of the plantation that are subject to long-term retention policy. And I can get you the CD for that if it would help.
I think we'll be looking at that material anyway to save the problems. Now, Ms. Fisher, you're eager to press your button?
Same again. Is that an easy answer?
And is it snap from
In terms of Craiginmoddie, the assessment is based on no tree cover there, but they are reflected. The tree cover forestry is shown in the photo montages, as is currently the case.
Your assessment is based on no tree cover?
Yes. So no tree cover on the assessment, but the photo montages show the existing situation.
Okay. And just to be clear, for those who are here tonight, this folder beside me highlights the information that we asked for from the applicants, which is, provides new cumulative with all the schemes on from the 13 properties that we'll visit. So when we visit the properties, we'll be using this a large folder as we go round. So that was information we asked of the applicants as part of the written submissions. I think that's it for just now, Mr. Reid, from me.
Well, we can pass over to Ms. Crossthwaite now.
I'd just like to say that we're not challenging the developers on their distances. We used our own. We created our own map with our own grid references, so I'm sure they're very close to whatever they are. We're not actually being site specific here or challenging anything.
Certainly in terms of distances.
Yes, in distances, but we're still we would like you to look at the stage 4 what it says for each of these applications in the applicants, because they haven't been carried out, particularly for Toll House and Toll Cottage, which are so very, very close.
Talaminnock as well.
And Talaminnock in particular as well.
They haven't been done.
And one of the applicants has explained their reasoning for that in terms of reaching a certain threshold and not carrying out, and we'll make our own assessment of that after we visit the site.
If you, I say, we'll probably write out and make a formal request for that, so that it's done properly through a formal sort of written submission to allow comment back on that, just to make sure everybody's got the same material and had a chance to look at it properly.
Just one final point from us, sir, in relation to the stage 4 assessments. If Ms Fisher could address that, please.
Sorry, I need to make a clarification. I realised when Mr Welsh answered that I'd answered generically. Stage 4 was carried out where it was required. It wasn't. Sorry. I was just saying I answered generically. So stage 4 assessments were carried out where they were identified as being required. They were not carried out where high magnitude effects were not identified. I apologise for being unspecific.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. Is that your presentation completed now for Safe Straighten?
I would just like to just refer to some of the requests that I've been given by the residents on residential amenity, if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not going to read them all out. I think you have this. This is CD.
What's just so everybody's aware, we have all that information before us already. So if it's just sort of highlight the very sort of main points,
absolutely,
then that would be fine.
It is CD 009063. Okay. Mrs. Rowden, she says that neither our home nor my workshop are of standard construction, and this is Tell or Toll House. Sorry, Tell or Toll House. Neither our home nor my workshop are of standard construction, and this makes both of them susceptible to noise. We already hear the turbines at Desallet when the wind is from the east. In addition, our home is in an elevated position and looks over the cottage on the other side of the road. Our main living area and bedrooms all face the proposed site, and the proximity of the turbines will, in our opinion, be overbearing. Since we look towards the west and therefore the setting sun, we also expect that this will cause shadow flicker. We have made our home here, put down roots, and certainly do not want to be forced out by the imposition of these proposed industrial sites. This is from Barnfield, Mrs. Swindles, and Mr. Swindles, who live up on the opposite side of the valley. The Girvan Valley is the jewel of the crown of South Ayrshire and gives opportunity for city dwellers and local residents alike to enjoy a sense of wilderness and quiet in a beautiful area. The sheer size of these turbines, together with the height at which they will be sited, will dominate the landscape for miles. From our house, the landscape will be dominated by three. This is with regard to the on the hill on Craigard. From our house, the landscape will be dominated by 3 wind turbines immediately opposite us and 1 to the left. The main turbine of the 3 is the dominant one, but there are 2 further back, and the blades will be very visible. The impact of flicker will be at least tripled. Unless they work like synchronized swimmers, the flicker will be caused by 9 blades rotating at different timings. Mr. McCrindle, who lives at Talaminnock, He runs a small accommodation business which would suffer due to these turbines. A recent review of the accommodation summed up what guests experience here in the wilds of the Carrick forest. Spending 2 days away from the city to come to this amazing place should be a standard prescription for detoxing from a hectic life. Never experienced such calm, silence, and the stars in this way before. It was like seeing the night sky for the first time. We managed to see the stars on the first evening, and to see them with such clarity and total darkness was both a revelation and spellbinding. The walks to the loch were a great way to chill and reconnect with the beauty of Scotland we take for granted. Tell or Toll Cottage. In our property, all the public rooms face the hill. Only the bedrooms at the front face the road. The garden and slabbed patio are near the rear of the house facing the hill, so the wind turbines will be constantly in our face. Mrs. Elaine Wise, who runs a small glamping site in the village of Strayton with her husband Nick Wise, have lived in Strayton for 30 years, and their business consists of glamping pods. Our guests come for the peace and tranquility and to enjoy nature. Tourism is very important in our small village, and our business helps promote the other businesses in the village. Industrial turbines would put people off from coming here. And Mr. Sandy Miller from Knoxcronal. Overbearing effects. Overbearing is a term used to describe a dominating impact of development on its surroundings on a nearby property, whether a proposal development is considered to be overbearing. The physical presence of a building or development, its scale and mass, an oppressive feeling as a result of the development, an intrusive feeling as the result of the development. This Knoxcronal wind farm proposal results in all three of the above effects on my home and will make it feel uncomfortable and uninhabitable. I would just like to finish on that one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That's us got to the last item on the agenda. Mr. Bray, do you have any other questions you wish to ask?
It's more a comment more than anything else. I think this evening has given the reporters some food for thought with regard to the coverage of our site visits. Our site visits aren't over, it's an ongoing basis, so we'll take away some of the comments that were provided tonight and consider whether we need to do additional unaccompanied site visits. Although I think we've been actually to most of the places that have been mentioned tonight, we can reassure you, but we'll take that away again and think about whether or not we need to do some more unaccompanied site inspections.
Okay, thank you. I'm content that we've covered all the areas that we need to cover this evening, and I'll therefore bring proceedings to a close. The sessions will be hearings for private water supply on the 7th of June, transport matters on the 8th of June, and peak matters for Carrick on the 9th of June. In terms of landscape and visual, the next inquiry session is scheduled for the 13th to 15th of June for Knockcronal and the 21st to 23rd of June for Craiginmoddie, where we'll be looking at landscape and visual impacts through the inquiry sessions. Our report on these proposals will be sent to Scottish Ministers, obviously in due course. I'd like to thank everyone for their participation and their contributions, which we found very helpful. And so I'll just bring the meeting to a close and just thank you all for attending this evening. Thank you.